Dr. Lisa Grant stared at the computer screen in disbelief. After 15 years of searching for signs of alien life, she had found something that made her hands shake. The data showed a pattern hidden deep in the cosmic background radiation, something that should not exist. "Jake, come look at this," she called to her colleague across the room. Dr. Jake Morrison walked over, his coffee mug still steaming in the early Nevada morning. The Deep Space Communications Array facility was quiet, except for the hum of massive computers processing signals from across the galaxy. "What am I looking at?" Jake asked, pushing his glasses up his nose. "A signal, but not just any signal. Look, at the frequency pattern." Lisa pointed to the waveforms dancing across her monitor. "It's artificial. Someone made this." Jake leaned closer. His expertise in ancient languages had brought him to this remote facility 6 months ago. Most people thought his job was pointless, but Lisa had insisted they needed someone who could understand alien communication if they ever found it. "How old?" he asked. "That's the problem, based on the decay patterns and how deep it's buried. In the background radiation, I'd say at least 3 million years, maybe more." Jake whistled softly. "That would make it older than any civilization we know about." Dr. Amy Stone arrived an hour later. The xenoarchaeologist had been studying alien ruins on Mars for the past 2 years, but she dropped everything when Lisa called. Her small frame moved quickly through the facility as technicians showed her to the main lab. "Show me what you found," Amy said without greeting anyone. Lisa played back the signal. It was a series of pulses and tones that repeated every few hours. The pattern was complex but clearly structured, like a language. "It's definitely communication," Jake said. "But the structure is unlike anything I've seen. It's almost like it's designed to be understood by multiple different species." Amy studied the readouts. "That makes sense if you're trying to send a message across vast distances and time. You'd want it to be readable by anyone who might find it." They worked for 3 days straight. Jake broke down the signal into component parts while Amy provided context about ancient alien technology. Lisa kept scanning for more signals like it. On the 4th day, Jake made the breakthrough. "I've got part of it," he announced, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. "It's a warning. It says something about the third planet and sleeping." "Third planet from what?" Lisa asked. "From the sun. From our sun. It's talking about Earth, the—" Room fell silent. Amy was the first to speak. "What exactly does it say?" Jake looked at his notes. "The third planet sleeps. Do not disturb, do not approach, do not wake them." Them. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. Who is them? Before Jake could answer, Captain Pete Williams entered the lab. The Space Force. Officer had been assigned to monitor their project for potential security threats. His arrival usually meant trouble. "Dr. Grant, I need to see what you found," he said in his crisp military tone. Lisa showed him the signal and Jake's translation. Pete's face remained calm, but she noticed his jaw tighten. "Have you found any other signals like this one?" Pete asked. "I've been looking," Lisa said. "Why?" "Because 2 hours ago, our deep space monitoring station in Australia picked up 17 more signals with similar patterns, all coming from different directions in space." Amy stood up slowly. 17 more warnings about Earth? "It gets worse," Pete continued. "The signals aren't coming from one location. They're spread across a sphere around our solar system, like someone put warning beacons in a circle around us." Jake worked frantically to decode the new signals. Each one was slightly different, but carried the same basic message. As he translated, More of them, the picture became clearer and more frightening. The sleepers must not wake. Death follows the third world. They consume the Kethmar Empire. Pray they never remember. Lisa found herself pacing the lab. This doesn't make sense. These signals are talking about Earth like we're some kind of threat. But 3 million years ago, humans were barely walking upright. Maybe it's not talking about humans, Amy suggested. Then what? Pete asked. Amy pointed to her laptop screen showing images from Mars. What if something else lived on Earth back then? Something that left and went to sleep? Jake shook his head. No, look at this message. He highlighted a section of alien text. It specifically mentions the planet's surface dwellers, and this symbol here appears in other warnings too. I think it means the ones who dream of stars. That sounds like humans to me, Lisa said quietly. Pete made a phone call to his superiors while the scientists continued working. Within an hour, black vehicles arrived at the facility. Men in suits began setting up additional security. What's happening? Lisa asked Pete when he returned. We're taking this very seriously. If someone put warning beacons around our entire solar system, we need to know why. Dr. Stone found something else troubling in the data. Pete, look at this. The signals aren't just warnings. Some of them contain historical records. She showed them a signal that Jake had partially decoded. It spoke of vast ships that moved between stars, of worlds that went dark in a matter of days, of an empire that spread across the galaxy like a disease. According to this, whatever they're warning about destroyed hundreds of civilizations, Amy said, and all of these records point to the same source, our solar system. Lisa stared out the window at the desert landscape. Somewhere above them, invisible signals carried warnings about Earth that had been broadcasting for millions of years. Other civilizations had known about their world long before humans even existed as a species. There's something else, Jake said hesitantly. I found a pattern in the star charts included with these messages. They show the positions of stars as they were millions of years ago. But there are gaps, whole sections of the galaxy that are marked as consumed or empty. Pete studied the charts. How big are these empty sections? Hundreds of star systems, maybe thousands. The room was quiet except for the humming computers. Outside, more government vehicles were arriving. Lisa realized their small research project had just become something much bigger and more dangerous. What do we do now? She asked. Pete looked at the decoded messages scrolling across the screen. We figure out what those warnings are really about. And we better hope we never find out why they were necessary. As night fell over the Nevada desert, the signals continued broadcasting their ancient warnings. Somewhere in the darkness above, other civilizations had left messages about Earth that spoke of sleep and death and things that should never wake up. The questions that haunted Lisa as she tried to sleep that night were simple but terrifying. What had Earth done millions of years ago that made the entire galaxy afraid? And was it still sleeping? Or was it starting to wake up? Maria Santos had never seen so many computers in one place. The new facility in Colorado was 3 times larger than the Nevada station, and every machine was focused on one task: decoding alien warnings about Earth. She worked alongside Nick Davis, a young communications specialist who seemed to understand the alien signals better than anyone expected. Together, they had been processing dozens of new messages that arrived daily from monitoring stations around the world. Maria, look at this one, Nick said, pointing to his screen. It's different from the others. The signal came from a source, much closer to Earth than the others. Dr. Stone had identified it as coming from somewhere in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Dr. Morrison translated the message while Maria and Nick analyzed its structure. What they found made everyone in the lab stop working. They destroyed the Kethmar Empire in 7 rotations, Jake read aloud. The sleepers woke for only a brief time, but entire sectors went dark. When they returned to their world, we thought, we were safe. We were wrong. Dr. Grant looked up from her own workstation. 7 rotations of what? Based on the stellar positions mentioned in the message, I think it means 7 years, Amy said. Someone is claiming that Earth destroyed an entire empire in 7 years. That's impossible, Maria said. 3 million years ago, humans didn't even have fire. Nick was studying the signal's origin point more carefully. Dr. Stone, this message isn't as old as the others. The decay patterns suggest it's only about 50,000 years old. Amy felt her stomach drop. 50,000 years ago, humans were already on every continent. We had language, tools, art. But we still didn't have space travel, Lisa pointed out. Are we sure about that? Jake asked quietly. The question hung in the air like a poison cloud. Everything they thought they knew about human history suddenly seemed uncertain. Over the next week, more messages revealed a pattern that none of them wanted to believe. The warnings weren't just about one ancient incident. They described multiple events spread across millions of years, all connected to Earth. The sleepers consumed 3 sectors before returning to slumber. 47 worlds fell silent when they passed. We tried to negotiate. They did not understand the concept. They take everything. Knowledge, resources, life itself. Each message painted the same picture. Something from Earth would periodically wake up and spread across the galaxy like a plague. It would destroy everything in its path, then return home and go back to sleep. Dr. Grant found herself unable to eat or sleep properly. The weight of what they were discovering pressed down on her like a physical force. There has to be another explanation, she said during one of their daily meetings. Maybe they're talking about something else that lived on Earth. Dinosaurs, or some other species that went extinct. Captain Williams had been upgraded to colonel and given command of the entire project. His new security clearance allowed him to share information that made everything worse. I've been looking at classified archaeological reports, Pete said. There are things we've found that don't match any known human civilization. Structures under the ice in Antarctica that appear to be millions of years old. Technology in Siberian. Permafrost that we can't identify. Amy had been investigating similar anomalies. And there are the missing probes. Deep space missions that just vanished without explanation. Some of them disappeared near coordinates that match warning beacon locations. Nick made a discovery that changed everything. While analyzing the structure of the alien languages, he found something that no one expected. The messages aren't just warnings, he announced to the assembled team. Some of them are historical records, battle reports, survivor accounts. He showed them a message that Jake had been struggling to translate. It was much longer than the others and contained detailed descriptions of events. This one talks about a species called the Kethmar. According to this, they were peaceful traders who controlled dozens of star systems. They had been around for over 1 million years. Jake continued the translation. It says the sleepers arrived in ships that bent space around them. The Kethmar tried to communicate, but the sleepers didn't respond to any language or mathematical concepts. They just took everything. What do you mean, took everything? Maria asked. Resources, technology, even the knowledge stored in their computers. But not just those things. The message says they took the Kethmar's understanding of how to build things, how to think, how to exist. It's like they absorbed the entire civilization. Amy was checking star charts on her computer. I found something. The coordinates given for the Kethmar territory match a region of space that modern astronomy calls a stellar desert. No planets, no debris, just empty space where there should be star systems. The team worked in shifts now, as more warnings arrived every day. The messages came from dozens of different civilizations, all describing encounters with something they called the Sleepers, or the Devourers, or those who dream of stars. Dr. Stone found patterns in the archaeological evidence that supported the alien accounts. "Look at this," she said, showing the team a map of Earth. "Every 50,000 years or so, there are gaps in the archaeological record, periods where human advancement just stops for thousands of years." "Like something went away and then came back?" Lisa asked. "Or like something woke up and then went back to sleep," Amy replied. The most disturbing discovery came from Maria's analysis of the binge signal network itself. She had been mapping the locations of all the warning beacons when she noticed something impossible. "The beacons aren't randomly placed," she told the team. "They're positioned at specific points that would be optimal for monitoring Earth's radio and electromagnetic emissions. Someone planned this network to watch our world." Nick had been working on the most recent messages when he found something that made his hands shake. "There's a new signal. It just started broadcasting 3 hours ago." Jake translated it quickly. The message was shorter than the others, but far more frightening. "The patterns are changing. The sleepers stir. The old warnings may no longer be enough." Colonel Williams immediately ordered increased security around the facility. "What does that mean?" "The patterns are changing." "I think it means we're waking up," Jake said quietly. Dr. Grant stared at the maps and charts covering every wall of the lab. Hundreds of alien civilizations had left warnings about Earth. They had described humanity as an unstoppable force that periodically emerged from their world to consume everything in reach. "The question is," Lisa said, "are we the descendants of whatever they were afraid of? Or are we something different that just happens to live on the same planet?" Amy pulled up geological surveys on her computer. "What if we're not descendants? What if we're the same species, just dormant?" The idea was so terrible that no one spoke for several minutes. The possibility that humanity was not an innocent species learning about the universe, but an ancient predator that had simply forgotten what it was capable of. Outside the Colorado facility, the world continued as normal. People went to work, children played, families gathered for dinner. None of them knew that buried in cosmic radiation were messages from hundreds of dead civilizations, all saying the same thing about their world. Do not wake them. But according to the newest signals, it might already be too late. Something was stirring on the third planet, and the galaxy was starting to notice. General Frank Russell arrived at the Colorado facility with an entourage that included Director Helen Price, a woman whose agency was so classified that even Colonel Williams didn't know its real name. They brought new equipment, new personnel, and new rules that changed everything about the project. Dr. Grant watched as her small research team was absorbed into something much larger and more secretive. The facility expanded overnight, with new sections being built underground. Workers arrived with materials that she didn't recognize and security clearances that she didn't have. "Dr. Grant," Director Price said during their first meeting, "your team has discovered something that could change the course of human history. We need to understand it completely before anyone else learns about it." Lisa looked around the conference room at the new faces. Who else would learn about it? Other governments, the media, the public, General Russell replied. Information like this could cause worldwide panic. We need to control how it's released. The general brought in Dr. Ben Clark, a historian who specialized in ancient civilizations. Ben had been studying unexplained archaeological sites for 20 years, and what he knew made the alien warnings seem even more credible. There are structures on Earth that don't fit any known human civilization, Ben explained to the expanded team. Not just a few artifacts, but entire complexes buried under ice, sand, and sediment. Some of them show technology that we can't reproduce even today. Dr. Kate Myers arrived 2 days later. The quantum physicist had been pulled from a top-secret project to help understand the science behind the alien warnings. What she found in the signals challenged everything they thought they knew about physics. The beacon network isn't just broadcasting warnings, Kate explained. It's monitoring quantum fluctuations around Earth. Someone built a detection system that can sense changes in the fundamental structure of space-time near our planet. Amy Stone had been investigating the Mars connection. The ruins she had studied. There showed signs of the same technology found in Earth's buried structures. Mars wasn't just visited by whoever built these things, Amy told the team. It was inhabited. There are cities under the Martian surface that are millions of years old, and the technology is definitely human in origin. How can you be sure it's human? Director Price asked. Amy showed them photographs of symbols carved into Martian rock. Because these are human mathematical concepts. Not just basic math, but advanced physics and engineering principles that humans developed. No other species would use exactly the same symbolic logic. The most disturbing evidence came from Colonel Williams's investigation of historical anomalies. His new security clearance gave him access to classified reports dating back decades. We've known about some of this for years, Pete admitted. Deep space probes that disappeared without explanation, radio signals from empty regions of space, astronomical observations that didn't match our understanding of stellar formation. He showed them a map of the galaxy with marked locations. These are all places where our probes stop transmitting. Notice how they form a pattern around certain star systems. The pattern matched the coordinates mentioned in the alien warnings. Every location where Earth's technology had mysteriously failed corresponded to a place that the aliens described as consumed or empty. Dr. Clark made a connection that horrified everyone. I've been researching human migration patterns over the past 100,000 years. There are periods where humans suddenly developed new technologies or made rapid advances in different parts of the world simultaneously. What kind of advances? Lisa asked. Tool-making, agriculture, metalworking, astronomy. Skills that should have taken thousands of years to develop, but appeared almost overnight in isolated populations that had no contact with each other. Kate Myers had been analyzing the quantum data from the alien beacons. It's like something periodically activates dormant information in human consciousness. The quantum signatures suggest massive downloads of data directly into human neural networks. The team worked around the clock, but each discovery made their situation worse. The alien warnings weren't just about ancient history. They were about an ongoing threat that was showing signs of awakening. Director Price brought in psychological evaluators to monitor the team's mental health. She had seen classified reports about what happened to people who learned too much about certain subjects. Are we in danger just from knowing this? Maria Santos asked during a private conversation with Dr. Grant. I don't know, Lisa replied honestly. But I've been having strange dreams since we started this project. Maria nodded. Me too. Dreams about flying through space, about worlds covered in light and energy. They feel more like memories than dreams. Nick Davis had been experiencing similar phenomena. Sometimes when I'm working on the translations, I understand the alien languages before I decode them, like I already know what they say. Dr. Morrison confirmed that others were having the same experiences. It's as if learning about our history is triggering something in our minds, something that was always there, but sleeping. General Russell ordered medical examinations for everyone involved in the project. The results showed unusual brain activity in areas associated with memory and spatial reasoning. All team members displayed enhanced pattern recognition and mathematical abilities that hadn't been present before joining the project. "What's happening to us?" Amy asked Dr. Myers. "I think we're remembering," Kate replied. "The quantum field around Earth appears to contain stored information. Learning about our true history is allowing us to access it." The breakthrough came when Ben Clark discovered a buried facility in Antarctica. Satellite imaging revealed structures under the ice that were enormous in scale and clearly artificial. "This isn't just a building," Ben explained. "It's a complex that covers an area larger than Manhattan. And the ice core samples show it's been there for at least 3 million years. Director Price authorized an expedition to Antarctica despite the obvious risks. The team that traveled to the ice continent included Dr. Stone, Dr. Clark, and Colonel Williams, along with a full military support unit. What they found beneath the Antarctic ice changed everything they thought they knew about human history. The facility was not just ancient human technology. It was a control center, still partially active after millions of years. Computer systems that operated on principles beyond current human understanding displayed star charts, resource calculations, and tactical assessments of galactic civilizations. "This is a military command center," Pete reported back to Colorado. "But the scale is incredible. They were monitoring and planning operations across thousands of star systems." Amy found records that confirmed their worst fears. The aliens were right. Humans did spread across the galaxy multiple times. This facility contains detailed logs of conquest campaigns stretching back millions of years. But the most important discovery was what Ben Clark found in the deepest levels of the complex. There's a chamber down here with what looks like stasis equipment, thousands of individual units all empty. But the power systems are still active, and some of the monitoring equipment is showing signs of recent activity. Director Price realized what they had found. It's not just a command center. It's a storage facility. Somewhere to sleep between campaigns. The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just descended from a galactic predator species. They were that species, dormant but not extinct, waiting for something to trigger their awakening. As the team in Antarctica prepared to explore deeper into the facility, the quantum beacons around Earth detected something new: the monitoring. Systems that had been broadcasting warnings for millions of years registered a change in the planet's energy signature. Something was starting to wake up, and according to the ancient records found in Antarctica, when humanity fully awakened from its long sleep, the galaxy would face a threat unlike anything it had ever known. The only question was whether the humans who discovered their true nature could control what they were becoming, or if they would simply remember how to be the monsters their ancestors had been. Dr. Sam Turner had been studying unusual psychological phenomena for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for what started happening 3 weeks after the Colorado team began their deep research. People around the world were reporting identical dreams about vast ships moving between stars and worlds burning in space. The dreams weren't random nightmares. They were detailed, consistent visions that included technical information about spacecraft design, stellar navigation, and combat tactics that the dreamers couldn't possibly know. Sam documented hundreds of cases from 6 different continents, all describing the same impossible memories. It's like someone is broadcasting directly into human consciousness, Sam reported to Director Price during his first briefing at the Colorado facility. But it's not affecting everyone equally. People with certain genetic markers seem more susceptible. The genetic connection worried Dr. Myers. Her quantum analysis had detected changes in the electromagnetic field around Earth. That correlated with the appearance of the dreams. Something was definitely activating dormant information in human minds. Colonel Williams had been monitoring global military activities for unusual patterns. What he found was deeply concerning. Conflict levels are rising worldwide, Pete reported to General Russell. But not in normal ways. Military leaders are making strategic decisions that are far more aggressive and sophisticated than their training would suggest. The changes weren't limited to military personnel. Political leaders who had spent careers negotiating peaceful solutions were suddenly advocating for territorial expansion. Scientists were developing weapons technologies that seemed to come from nowhere. Engineers were designing spacecraft using principles that hadn't been invented yet. Dr. Stone made a disturbing discovery while reviewing archaeological sites around the world. Ancient locations that had been inactive for thousands of years were showing signs of unusual activity. The electromagnetic readings from Stonehenge, the pyramids, Easter Island, and dozens of other sites have changed dramatically, Amy explained. They're all generating energy signatures that match the technology we found in Antarctica. Maria Santos and Nick Davis had been monitoring the alien warning beacons when they detected something that made everyone in the facility stop working. "The signals are changing," Maria announced during an emergency meeting. "The warnings are getting more urgent, and we're receiving new messages from sources much closer to Earth." Nick translated the newest signals with growing alarm. "Warning! The third planet shows signs of awakening. All ships maintain distance. Do not approach the forbidden system." But the most frightening message came from a source within the solar system itself. Emergency transmission. The sleepers stir. Ancient protocols may be insufficient. Request immediate. Evacuation of all personnel from monitoring stations. Dr. Grant realized what that meant. "There are still aliens watching us. They have people in our solar system right now." The implications were staggering. Humanity had been under observation for millions of years, and now their watchers were preparing to flee. Dr. Clark found historical evidence that supported the idea of an ongoing alien presence. There are reports throughout human history of strange objects in the sky, unexplained disappearances, and technology that appeared and vanished. What if those weren't random encounters? What if they were monitoring operations? The team's psychological evaluations showed increasingly dramatic changes. Everyone involved in the project was displaying enhanced cognitive abilities, but also personality shifts that worried the medical staff. They're becoming more aggressive, more confident, and more willing to consider extreme solutions to problems, the chief psychiatrist reported to Director Price. It's as if learning about their history is changing who they are at a fundamental level. Dr. Turner documented similar changes in people around the world who had been experiencing the dreams. Enhanced spatial reasoning, advanced mathematical, intuition, and most concerning, an increasing sense of entitlement about humanity's place in the universe. The dreams were becoming more specific and actionable. People were remembering how to build things that shouldn't exist, how to solve problems that current science couldn't address, and how to think about galactic-scale strategies and resources. Kate, Myers made a discovery that explained the mechanism behind the changes. The quantum field around Earth isn't just monitoring us. It's a storage and transmission system for information. Every human who ever lived contributed data to it, and now it's downloading that accumulated knowledge back into selected individuals. You mean we're remembering things that our ancestors knew millions of years ago? Lisa asked. More than that. We're accessing the collective memory of our entire species across geological time periods. Every conquest, every innovation, every strategic insight from millions of years of galactic expansion. The Antarctic facility had become the focus of intensive study. The team there, led by Dr. Stone and Colonel Williams, found evidence that the awakening process was not accidental. There are automatic systems here that activate when certain conditions are met, Amy reported. Population levels, technological, development, and external threats all factor into the decision to wake up the dormant capabilities. Pete had found the control room for these systems. According to the displays, humanity goes through cycles. We expand across the galaxy, consume everything we can reach, then return to Earth and go dormant. The cycle has repeated at least 12 times over the past few million years, but this cycle was different. The control systems were showing error messages and warning indicators that suggested something had gone wrong with the normal pattern. The last awakening should have happened 50,000 years ago, Ben Clark discovered in the facility's historical records. Something prevented it, and now the delayed activation is causing unpredictable effects. Dr. Turner found evidence of what had interfered with the cycle. There are genetic markers in modern humans that don't appear in older populations. Someone or something modified our species to delay the awakening. The alien watchers had not been passive observers. They had been actively working to keep humanity dormant, hoping that given enough time the species might evolve beyond its destructive nature, but their intervention was failing. The awakening was beginning despite their efforts, and the accumulated pressure from 50,000 years of suppressed activation was making the process more violent and unpredictable than normal. Colonel Williams received reports of increasing military incidents worldwide. Aircraft carriers are changing course without orders. Submarine commanders are requesting permission to investigate deep ocean anomalies. Satellite networks are being reprogrammed by personnel who claim they're following protocols that don't officially exist. The most alarming report came from the International Space Station. Astronauts were reporting that they could see structures on the dark side of the moon that weren't supposed to be there. Large geometric shapes that weren't visible before, the mission commander reported. They appear to be activating some kind of lighting or energy systems. Dr. Myers confirmed that the quantum signatures around the moon had changed dramatically. There's definitely artificial technology there, and it's responding to the changes happening on Earth. The alien warning network was now broadcasting continuously. New messages arrived hourly, all expressing increasing panic about the situation in the solar system. The sleepers wake ahead of schedule, ancient containment failing, all vessels withdraw beyond the barrier systems. Emergency, third planet activation detected. Historical protocols insufficient. Recommend activation of ultimate deterrent. Nick Davis translated that last message with shaking hands. I think they're talking about destroying Earth to prevent us from spreading again. Director Price made the decision to expand the project beyond the classified level. We need to involve world governments. If humanity is about to undergo some kind of species-wide transformation, people need to know what's happening. But even as she made plans to brief world leaders, the signs of awakening continued to accelerate. Ancient sites around the world were generating energy that could be seen from space. Ocean currents were changing as underwater structures activated. The aurora borealis appeared at latitudes where it had never been visible before. Dr. Grant stood in the main lab, watching readouts that showed humanity's true nature emerging from millions of years of dormancy. Outside, the world continued its daily routine, unaware that their species was remembering how to be something that had once consumed entire galactic civilizations. The question was no longer whether humanity would wake up. The question was what they would choose to do when they remembered what they really were. The truth came in pieces, scattered across alien records and buried human archives, each revelation more disturbing than the last. Dr. Clark sat in the main conference room, surrounded by translations, archaeological reports, and quantum readings that painted a picture of humanity's past that no one wanted to believe. "We were never primitives struggling to survive," Ben said, his voice hollow after weeks of sleepless research. "Humans started as explorers, then became conquerors, and finally evolved into something that the galaxy feared more than any natural disaster. The alien records told a story that spanned millions of years. Early humans had developed space travel not gradually but almost overnight. One day they were hunter-gatherers, and within a few generations they were building ships that could cross the galaxy. Dr. Myers had been analyzing the quantum signatures embedded in the alien messages. The technology they described doesn't follow our understanding of physics. Human ships could apparently travel faster than light, manipulate matter at the atomic level, and extract energy directly from stellar cores. How is that possible?" "Maria," Santos asked. "Because human consciousness interacts with quantum fields in ways that other species can't replicate," Kate explained. "We don't just observe reality. We can actually alter it by understanding it completely." The first alien civilization to encounter humans had been the Veltar, peaceful traders who controlled a small cluster of star systems near what is now the constellation Orion. Their records, translated by Jake Morrison, described the meeting in terms that sounded like a natural disaster. First contact occurred when human vessels appeared simultaneously at all 17 Veltar worlds, Jake read from the ancient text. The humans did not request permission to enter Veltar space. They did not attempt communication. They simply began taking what they needed. The Veltar had tried to negotiate, offering trade agreements and territorial concessions. The humans had listened politely, learned the Veltar language and customs, and then systematically absorbed everything the Veltar knew about technology, science, and galactic politics. They didn't destroy the Veltar worlds, Amy Stone discovered, in the archaeological evidence. They emptied them. Every useful resource, every piece of knowledge, every innovation the Veltar had developed over thousands of years was extracted and incorporated into human capabilities. Dr. Turner found psychological profiles of human behavior from multiple alien sources. Other species described humans as having unlimited curiosity combined with complete moral flexibility. They would study a civilization intensively, learn everything about them, and then decide whether that civilization was useful or expendable. The pattern repeated across dozens of encounters. The Kethmar Empire had lasted 7 years after first contact with humans. The Zorbian Federation had managed 2 years. The ancient builders who had created massive stellar engineering projects were consumed in less than 6 months. But the humans weren't mindlessly destructive. Ben Clark realized. They were selective. They preserved useful knowledge and valuable individuals. Some alien populations were relocated to human-controlled worlds and integrated into the expanding empire. Colonel Williams had been studying the military records found in Antarctica. Human strategy was based on rapid expansion and resource concentration. They would identify the most advanced civilizations in a region, absorb their technology and knowledge, then use that enhanced capability to dominate surrounding systems. The truly disturbing aspect was how systematically human it all was. The records showed careful planning, detailed intelligence gathering, and strategic thinking that spanned thousands of years. They weren't monsters, Dr. Grant said during one late-night discussion. They were us, recognizably human in their curiosity, their adaptability, and their determination to survive and thrive. The quantum records revealed that ancient humans had developed technology that seemed magical to other species. They could manipulate matter with their thoughts, travel instantly across galactic distances, and process information at rates that allowed them to understand and duplicate any technology they encountered. Human consciousness operates on quantum levels that other species can't access, Dr. Myers explained. We literally think in ways that allow us to interact directly with the fundamental forces of reality. But the expansion had not been sustainable. The alien records described increasing instability in human-controlled space as the Empire grew beyond its ability to maintain coherent control. Distance and time started working against them, Amy discovered in the later historical records. Human colonies thousands of light years from Earth began developing their own agendas. The Empire started fragmenting into competing factions. The final phase of the ancient human empire was described in alien records as the Convergence War. Human factions turned their incredible technology against each other in conflicts that devastated entire galactic regions. They were literally tearing apart the structure of space-time, Dr. Clark found in the surviving alien observations. Battles involved weapons that could destroy star systems and defenses that could manipulate the laws of physics. The war had ended not with victory, but with exhaustion. The surviving humans had retreated to Earth, their technology damaged and their empire collapsed. But they had not simply given up. They made a conscious decision to go dormant, Jake translated from the final human records found in Antarctica. They knew they had become too powerful for the galaxy to coexist with them, so they designed a hibernation cycle that would allow them to sleep until the galaxy recovered. The hibernation was not passive. Human consciousness had been stored in quantum fields around Earth, preserving their knowledge and capabilities for future generations. The plan was to wake up periodically, assess the state of the galaxy, and decide whether to resume expansion or continue dormancy. They built the entire awakening process to be automatic, Pete Williams discovered in the Antarctic control systems. Population levels, technological development, and external threats all factor into the decision. When humans reach a certain level of capability, the dormant systems activate and begin restoring their full potential. But something had gone wrong with the cycle. Dr. Turner found evidence that the alien species had not simply accepted human dormancy as permanent. They formed a coalition, Sam explained. Hundreds of surviving civilizations worked together to build a containment system around Earth. They couldn't destroy humanity without destroying themselves, so they tried to keep us asleep permanently. The quantum beacons that had been broadcasting warnings were part of that containment system, but their primary function was not communication, it was consciousness suppression. They've been actively preventing human awakening for millions of years, Kate Myers realized. The quantum field around Earth isn't just storing human knowledge, it's been actively suppressing it. The suppression had worked for longer than intended, but it was finally breaking down. Human technological development in the past century had created quantum signatures that were overwhelming the containment field. Every computer, every satellite, every electronic device on Earth is contributing to the breakdown, Maria Santos discovered in her analysis of global electromagnetic patterns. We've been accidentally dismantling the suppression system with our own technology. The dreams, the enhanced abilities, and the awakening archaeological sites were all symptoms of humanity beginning to remember what it really was. But the process was accelerating beyond anyone's control. Dr. Stone found the most disturbing evidence in the deepest levels of the Antarctic facility. There are records here of what happens when the awakening completes. Human consciousness expands beyond individual minds and becomes a collective intelligence that operates on galactic scales. What does that mean? Lisa asked. It means we stop being individual people and become something else entirely. A single consciousness that can simultaneously exist across thousands of worlds and operate technology that can reshape reality itself. The alien warnings suddenly made perfect sense. They weren't afraid of human weapons or human aggression. They were afraid of what humanity became when it reached its full potential, a species-wide consciousness that was curious about everything and could take whatever it wanted to understand. Looking at the evidence scattered across the conference table, Dr. Grant realized that the awakening process could not be stopped. Humanity was remembering its true nature, whether anyone wanted it to or not. The only question was whether they could control what they were becoming, or if they would simply return to being the galactic force that other civilizations had spent millions of years trying to contain. The discovery on the dark side of the moon changed everything they thought they knew about humanity's relationship with the galaxy. Dr. Stone and engineer Tony Martinez led the first team to investigate the massive structure that satellite observations had detected, and what they found was both magnificent and heartbreaking. The installation was enormous, easily the size of a large city, built into a crater that had been artificially expanded and covered with technology that bent light around it. For millions of years, it had been invisible to human observation, but the awakening process on Earth had triggered systems that made it detectable. "This isn't human technology," Amy said, as their shuttle approached the main entrance. "The design principles are completely different from anything we found in Antarctica." Tony Martinez, whose engineering background helped him understand the construction, was amazed by the complexity. "It's like they built a machine that operates on multiple dimensions simultaneously. I can see the structure, but I can't figure out how it stays together." The entrance systems activated automatically when their shuttle approached, suggesting that whoever built the facility had been expecting human visitors eventually. Inside, they found corridors and chambers designed for multiple species, with environmental controls that could accommodate different atmospheric requirements. This was built by a coalition, Amy realized as they explored the first level. "Look at the architecture. Different sections use completely different design principles." The facility was still active after millions of years. Lights came on as they moved through the corridors, and computer systems displayed information in languages that Jake Morrison was learning to recognize from the alien warning signals. Dr. Clark, who had joined the moon mission despite the risks, found what appeared to be a central control room. The displays showed real-time monitoring of Earth's quantum field, along with historical data going back millions of years. "They've been watching us continuously," Ben said, studying the readouts. Every human invention, every technological advance, every change in global population has been recorded and analyzed. But the most important discovery was in the deepest levels of the facility. Tony found a chamber containing millions of crystalline structures, each one containing what appeared to be stored consciousness. "These aren't computers," he told the team. "They're individuals, actual people from hundreds of different species, all connected to the monitoring systems." Amy's archaeological training helped her understand what they had found. "It's not just a monitoring station, it's a memorial. These people volunteered to spend eternity watching Earth to make sure humanity stayed dormant." The scope of the sacrifice became clear as they explored more of the facility. Representatives from every major galactic civilization had contributed personnel to the monitoring effort. Thousands of individuals had given up their physical existence to become part of the containment system. Jake worked with the facility's translation systems to access the historical records. What he found was a story of desperation and hope that spanned millions of years. After the human empire collapsed, the surviving civilizations faced a choice, Jake explained to the team. They could try to destroy Earth and risk eliminating a species that might eventually become beneficial, or they could try to contain humanity until it evolved beyond its destructive phase. The debate had taken centuries. Some species wanted immediate extermination. Others argued that humanity's unique consciousness and technological abilities could benefit the galaxy if properly channeled. They chose hope over fear, Amy realized. These people sacrificed themselves betting that humanity could change. Dr. Myers, monitoring the quantum signatures from Earth, made a disturbing discovery. The containment field is designed to influence human consciousness development. They weren't just keeping us asleep. They were guiding our evolution to encourage empathy, cooperation, and moral reasoning. The coalition had been actively shaping human psychological development for millions of years, hoping to create a species that retained its incredible capabilities but lost its destructive impulses. Tony found engineering specifications that explained how the containment worked. The quantum field around Earth doesn't just suppress memories. It amplifies certain emotional responses and suppresses others. They've been making us more compassionate and less aggressive. But it's breaking down, Dr. Clark discovered in the facility's status reports. Human technological development in the past century has been overwhelming the containment field faster than it can adapt. The monitors showed that the awakening process was accelerating beyond the coalition's ability to control. Earth's quantum signature was changing so rapidly that the containment field was becoming unstable. Amy found personal messages left by the coalition members who had volunteered for the monitoring duty. Their words, translated across millions of years and dozens of languages, carried the same themes of hope and sacrifice. "We give our lives to buy time for wisdom to grow," read one message from a species called the Harmony Builders. "May the sleepers wake to become gardeners rather than devourers." Another message from the Kethmar survivors was more desperate. "Our children died for their curiosity. We die for their redemption. May this balance the scales of existence." The most moving message came from a human who had chosen to join the coalition during the final days of the Empire. "I remember what we were," the ancient human had written. "I have seen us consume worlds out of curiosity and destroy civilizations out of impatience. But I have also seen us love, create, and sacrifice for others. The capacity for both exists within us. This vigil is my attempt to nurture the better angels of our nature." Dr. Stone realized the magnitude of what they had discovered. An entire galactic civilization chose to sacrifice itself to give humanity a chance to become something better. But the sacrifice was failing. The facility's displays showed critical system failures throughout the containment network. The quantum field that had been suppressing human awakening for millions of years was collapsing. Tony found automated protocols that had been activated by the field's deterioration. The system is designed to send evacuation signals to any remaining coalition personnel when containment becomes impossible. That's what triggered the recent warning messages. How many of them are still out there? Amy asked. Jake checked the communication logs. Based on the signal patterns, I'd estimate a few 100,000 individuals scattered across monitoring stations throughout the solar system and nearby star systems. The Coalition's watchers were preparing to abandon their posts after millions of years of vigilance. Their sacrifice had given humanity time to develop moral reasoning and social cooperation, but they had not been able to prevent the awakening entirely. Dr. Clark found the Coalition's final contingency plans. If containment fails and humanity awakens before achieving sufficient moral development, the remaining Coalition forces are authorized to implement the final protocol. What's the final protocol? Tony asked. The answer was in the facility's deepest archives. The Coalition had built weapons capable of destroying Earth's entire biosphere while leaving the planet intact. They could exterminate humanity without damaging the quantum field that stored human consciousness. They could kill every human alive, but preserve our stored knowledge and memories, Amy translated from the ancient records. Then they could wait another 1,000,000 years and try again with the next human civilization that developed. The moral complexity was staggering. The Coalition had spent millions of years nurturing humanity's development, but they were still prepared to genocide the entire species if the awakening went wrong. Dr. Myers detected increasing quantum instability around Earth. The containment field has maybe weeks left before total collapse. When it fails, every human on Earth will have access to millions of years of stored knowledge and capability. And the Coalition will have to decide whether to activate their final protocol, Amy added. The team on the Moon found themselves in an impossible position. They were the first humans to learn about the Coalition's sacrifice and their current dilemma. The aliens, who had spent millions of years hoping for humanity's redemption, were now preparing to destroy them if necessary. Looking at the displays showing Earth surrounded by failing containment fields and hidden weapons, Dr. Stone realized that humanity's future would be decided not by their own choices, but by whether they could prove to their watchers that the sacrifice had been worth it. The Coalition had bet everything on the possibility that humans could evolve beyond their destructive nature. Now, as the awakening accelerated beyond anyone's control, that bet was about to be tested in the most final way possible. The question was whether humanity could demonstrate enough wisdom and compassion to justify millions of years of alien hope, or whether they would prove that some species could never change, no matter how much time and effort was invested in their redemption. The emergency session included world leaders, military commanders, and scientists from every major nation on Earth. Director Price had made the decision to reveal everything, despite the obvious risks of global panic. The evidence was too overwhelming to hide, and the timeline too short to maintain secrecy. President Williams of the United States sat across from Premier Chen of China, Chancellor Muller of Germany, and Prime Minister Patel of India. None of them had believed the initial briefings until they saw the quantum readings, the translated alien messages, and the footage from the Moon facility. "Let me understand this correctly," President Williams said. his voice carefully controlled. We have weeks before every human on Earth gains access to the technological knowledge of a galactic empire. And if we use that knowledge the wrong way, hidden alien forces will exterminate our entire species. Dr. Grant nodded. That's an accurate summary, Mr. President. General Russell had prepared military assessments of the situation. Our analysis suggests that the awakening process cannot be stopped or significantly delayed. We can influence how it happens, but not whether it happens. The psychological evaluations were the most disturbing aspect of the briefing. Dr. Turner's research showed that humans who gained access to the stored knowledge also experienced personality changes that made them more aggressive and less empathetic. It's like the knowledge comes with the mindset of the people who created it, Sam explained. Ancient humans were incredibly capable, but they thought about other species as resources to be managed rather than equals to be respected. Premier Chen asked the obvious question: what options do we have? Colonel Williams outlined 3 possible approaches. We can try to reinforce the containment field and keep humanity dormant indefinitely. We can allow the awakening to proceed naturally and hope we can control the results. Or we can attempt to guide the awakening process to emphasize the knowledge and capabilities we want while suppressing the more dangerous aspects. Is it possible to reinforce the containment? Chancellor Mueller asked. Dr. Myers answered. Theoretically, yes, but it would require shutting down most of Earth's electronic infrastructure and reducing the global population to pre-industrial levels. We'd essentially have to destroy modern civilization to maintain the suppression field. The option of guided awakening was equally problematic. Kate explained the technical challenges. We'd need to modify the quantum field around Earth while it's collapsing. It would be like performing surgery on a patient who's having a heart attack. Prime Minister Patel raised the question that everyone was avoiding. What happens if we do nothing, if we just let the awakening complete naturally? Dr. Stone had studied the historical records extensively. Based on the ancient patterns, humanity would regain its full technological capabilities within months. We'd probably attempt to expand beyond Earth within a few years. And then the alien coalition would activate their final protocol, Dr. Clark added. The room fell silent as world leaders contemplated the extinction of human civilization. President Williams was the first to speak. There has to be a 4th option. Dr. Grant had been thinking about the same possibility. We could try to communicate with the coalition directly, prove to them that humanity has changed before the awakening completes. How do we prove something like that? Premier Chen asked. The answer came from an unexpected source. Maria Santos had been monitoring the alien communication networks since the crisis began, and she had noticed something important. The coalition isn't unanimous, Maria explained. We're receiving conflicting signals from different monitoring stations. Some of them are preparing to implement the final protocol, but others are arguing for more time. Nick Davis had been translating the internal coalition communications. There's a debate happening among them right now. Some species want to act immediately, but others remember why they chose containment over destruction in the first place. Dr. Morrison had found something even more significant in the ancient records. The original coalition agreement included provisions for human participation in the decision-making process if they demonstrated sufficient development. We have the right to present our case before any final action is taken. The idea was unprecedented and dangerous. Humanity would essentially put itself on trial before the species they had once terrorized, arguing that they deserved to survive their own awakening. General Russell was skeptical. How do we know they'll honor any agreement? They could just listen to our arguments and then destroy us anyway. Because they've spent millions of years hoping we would change, Amy Stone said. They didn't maintain the containment system out of fear alone. They did it out of hope that humanity could become something better. Director Price made the decision that would determine humanity's future. We'll attempt communication with the coalition and request a formal hearing, but we need to prepare for all possibilities. The next 2 weeks were the most intense in human history. While scientists worked to establish communication with the coalition, world governments prepared for scenarios ranging from peaceful coexistence to species extinction. Dr. Turner led a global psychological evaluation program, testing thousands of individuals who were beginning to experience awakening symptoms. The results were mixed but encouraging. People are gaining enhanced capabilities, but they're also retaining their moral reasoning, Sam reported. The containment field's influence on human development appears to have been successful in promoting empathy and cooperation. The first successful communication with the coalition came through the Moon facility. Amy Stone and Tony Martinez had established a dialogue with the ancient consciousnesses stored in the crystalline matrices. They're willing to listen, Amy reported back to Earth. But they want to see evidence that humanity has genuinely evolved beyond its destructive nature. The evidence humanity presented was both impressive and heartbreaking. They showed the coalition records of human cooperation during global crises, technological advances used for healing rather than destruction, and philosophical developments that emphasize the value of all conscious life. But they also had to acknowledge humanity's continued capacity for violence, environmental destruction, and conflict. The case they made was not that humans had become perfect, but that they had developed the moral framework necessary to use great power responsibly. The coalition's response came after days of internal debate that the human team could monitor through the quantum communication system. The consensus is divided, Jake translated from the alien transmissions. Roughly half of the remaining coalition species are willing to allow the awakening to proceed under supervised conditions. The other half considers humanity still too dangerous. The compromise proposal was complex and conditional. Humanity would be allowed to complete its awakening, but under strict limitations. They could not expand beyond their solar system for a probationary period of 1,000 years. They would be monitored continuously, and any aggressive actions toward other species would trigger immediate intervention. It's not perfect, President Williams said during the final government briefing, but it gives us a chance to prove ourselves. The alternative was equally challenging. If humanity rejected the coalition's terms, they would have to choose between remaining dormant forever or facing potential extinction when they attempted to expand beyond Earth. Dr. Grant found herself in the impossible position of speaking for all humanity in the final communication with the coalition. "We accept your terms," she transmitted to the monitoring stations around the solar system. "Humanity chooses the path of growth under guidance rather than dormancy or destruction." The coalition's response was immediate and surprising. Acknowledged. Awakening protocols will be modified to emphasize cooperative rather than competitive consciousness development. Monitoring will continue, but containment fields will be gradually reduced to allow natural development. Welcome back to the galaxy, younger siblings. We have waited long for this conversation. As the containment field began its controlled collapse, humans around the world experienced the return of capabilities that their species had possessed millions of years ago. But this time, the awakening came with the wisdom gained from millions of years of guided development and the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe. The choice had been made. Humanity would reclaim its place among the stars, but as students rather than conquerors, learning to use their incredible abilities in service of the galactic community that had sacrificed so much to give them this second chance. 6 months after the awakening began, Dr. Grant stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed orbital station above Earth, watching the first human ships prepare for their journey beyond the solar system. But these were not the conquest, fleets of ancient humanity. They were rescue vessels, responding to distress calls that had gone unanswered for thousands of years. The transformation had been remarkable and sometimes difficult. As humans regained access to their stored knowledge and capabilities, they also had to learn to control powers that could reshape matter and manipulate space-time. The learning process had not been without accidents and challenges. Captain Pete Williams, now Admiral Williams, commanded the lead vessel in humanity's first interstellar fleet since the ancient empire. The ships themselves were marvels that combined recovered human technology with insights gained from coalition species during the long containment period. Dr. Grant, we're receiving the final mission briefings from the coalition advisors, Pete reported through the quantum communication system. The Epsilon Eridani system has been sending automated distress signals for 1,200 years. No coalition species has been able to respond because of resource limitations. The irony was not lost on anyone involved in the mission. Humanity, once the greatest threat the galaxy had known, was now being asked to use their unique abilities to help other species in crisis. Dr. Stone had been working with coalition archaeologists to understand the situation in the Epsilon Eridani system. Based on the signal analysis, it appears to be a technological civilization that encountered some kind of catastrophic system failure. Their automated systems are still functioning, but there's no sign of life. The mission represented everything that humanity was trying to become. Instead of conquering and consuming, they would investigate, understand, and help if possible. Maria Santos had been promoted to director of the new Galactic Communications Center, coordinating between human authorities and coalition species. Her work involved translating not just languages, but entire ways of thinking about existence and consciousness. The coalition is still nervous about us, Maria reported during the pre-mission briefing. But they're also hopeful. Some of them have been waiting millions of years for help with problems that only human-level technology can address. Nick Davis worked with her to process the growing list of requests for assistance. We're receiving distress calls from across the galaxy. Dead civilizations, failed terraforming projects, and technological disasters that other species can't handle. Dr. Myers had been studying the quantum mechanics of human consciousness since the awakening completed. What she found explained why. Humanity was uniquely capable of helping with certain types of problems. Human consciousness interacts with quantum fields in ways that allow us to understand and repair complex systems that other species can only observe, Kate explained. We don't just see what's broken, we can actually comprehend how to fix it. The first test of this capability came before the fleet even left the solar system. The coalition monitoring station on the moon had been experiencing critical failures after millions of years of operation. The stored consciousnesses of coalition members were at risk of permanent degradation. Tony Martinez led the repair effort, working directly with the ancient alien technology. What he discovered changed how humans understood their role in the galaxy. The technology isn't just breaking down from age, Tony reported. It's been deliberately limiting its own functionality to avoid influencing human development too much. Now that the containment period is over, these systems can operate at full capacity again. The repair process required human consciousness to interface directly with alien quantum systems, something that should have been impossible. But humans could bridge the gap between different types of technology and consciousness, serving as universal translators for incompatible systems. Dr. Clark had been studying the historical records of similar cooperation attempts. There have been other species that tried to serve as galactic mediators, but none of them had the combination of technological adaptability and consciousness flexibility that humans possess. The success of the moon station repairs convinced the coalition that humanity's new role was not just possible, but necessary. The galaxy was full of problems that required the unique human ability to understand and adapt to any system they encountered. Admiral Williams received the final authorization for the Epsilon Eridani mission from both human and coalition authorities. The fleet consisted of 5 ships, each designed for different aspects of investigation and repair. "Remember," Dr. Grant told the assembled crews, "we're not going there as conquerors or even as leaders. We're going as helpers. Our job is to understand what went wrong and fix it if we can." The journey to Epsilon Eridani took 3 weeks using the recovered human faster-than-light technology. But unlike the ancient human empire's expansion, this mission was conducted in full cooperation with coalition monitoring forces. What they found in the Epsilon Eridani system was both tragic and inspiring. An advanced civilization had attempted to build a stellar engineering project that went catastrophically wrong, poisoning their entire solar system with exotic radiation. The automated distress signals had been broadcasting for over a millennium from the few surviving habitats. "There are still people alive in the deep shelters," Amy Stone reported after the initial survey. "Maybe 50,000 individuals from a species that once numbered in the billions." The rescue operation required every aspect of human capability. Engineers worked to neutralize the exotic radiation, while consciousness specialists helped translate between human and alien thinking patterns. Medical teams developed treatments for radiation exposure, and ship crews extracted survivors from failing habitat systems. But the most important work was psychological. The surviving aliens had lived for generations believing that they were alone in a poisoned system, abandoned by the galaxy. Learning that help had finally arrived, and that it came from the species they had once feared, was transformational for both sides. "They call us the Dreamwalkers," Nick Davis translated from the alien communications. "They say we move through impossible problems like people walking through dreams, making the impossible seem easy." The Epsilon Eridani rescue took 6 months to complete. When it was finished, 50,000 alien survivors had been relocated to safe worlds, and the poison system had been cleaned and restored to habitability. But more importantly, the mission established the pattern for humanity's new role in the galaxy. They were the problem solvers, the species that could understand any system and find solutions that other species couldn't imagine. Dr. Grant received the first reports of similar missions launching from Earth. Human ships were heading to dozens of crisis points across the galaxy, each one representing centuries or millennia of problems that no one else had been able to address. "The coalition is calling it the Great Healing," Maria Santos reported. "They say it's the beginning of a new age where the galaxy's greatest threat has become its greatest hope." The transformation was not just technological or strategic. It was fundamentally about what humanity chose to be. The ancient human empire had used its incredible capabilities to take whatever it wanted. The new humanity used those same capabilities to give whatever was needed. Admiral Williams returned to Earth with reports of gratitude from dozens of species who had received help from human rescue missions. They're not just thankful for the assistance, Pete told the assembled leaders. They're amazed that we chose to help instead of exploit the situations we found. Dr. Stone found the most significant evidence of change in the archaeological records that humans were now creating. Future civilizations studying our era will see something unprecedented. A species with godlike capabilities choosing to use them for healing and construction rather than conquest and consumption. The warning beacons that had once broadcast fears about Earth now carried different messages. The Coalition had updated their ancient network to spread word of humanity's transformation across the galaxy. The sleepers have awakened, but they dream new dreams, the new messages read. They who once consumed now create. They who once took now give. The third planet offers healing to those who ask. Standing on the observation deck, watching human ships return from successful rescue missions across the galaxy, Dr. Grant realized that they had achieved something remarkable. Humanity had not just survived its awakening, they had chosen to become something better than they had ever been before. The galaxy that had once hidden from human expansion now looked to Earth for help with its greatest challenges. The species that had been feared as the ultimate predator had become the ultimate protector. The ancient warnings had been replaced with new messages of hope. Humanity had remembered what it was capable of, but more importantly, it had decided what it wanted to become. The stars that had once fled from human ships now welcomed them as harbingers of healing and hope. The third planet that had slept for millions of years was finally awake, and it was dreaming not of conquest, but of a galaxy where every species could thrive under the protection of those who had learned to use ultimate power with ultimate responsibility. The choice had been made, and the galaxy would never be the same.